to honor the things that he did and the ways that he loved and the ways that he served. And Lord, we thank you for Rex and Dana and the extended family. And we ask, Lord, you'd come and do what only you can do, that you, the God of peace, would bring peace, that you'd bring comfort, Lord, that you'd bring joy in the memories of Bob, Lord. And we invite you to help us celebrate his life, not just remember it, because it's worth celebrating. And we ask for that in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, we want to invite you to sing this song. Bob was part of the 8 o'clock classic service here at Evergreen, and this was one of the hymns that the group loves to sing together, including Bob. Great is thy faithfulness. So we're going to invite you to join in with us.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow, blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Bob's life story. We all know a life story can't be contained in just the few paragraphs that you see there in your program or what I'm about to share or what we share collectively here today, but we want to take a moment and kind of get a summary version of that. Robert Edwin Gnos, 79, a resident of the North Plains community, passed away on September 24th of 2021. And Bob was born June 5th in 1942 in Hillsboro, Oregon. So he's a native. The youngest of 5 children born to Arnold and Mary Gnos. He was raised in Hillsboro, and he graduated from Hilhi in the class of 1960. Well, after high school, Bob attended OSU, where he earned his bachelor's degree in general science. Okay, we have to put a pause there. This just will not do at Bob's service. You see, at the 8 o'clock service, Sunday happens the day after all the games. And Bob and I would talk trash to each other about our teams. But we all know that OSU won last year, so I'm glad over the Ducks. So I'm glad that Bob got to go out on that. And the weekend after Bob died, the Beavers also won, and I really feel like that was a gift for him. So we want to honor Bob in that. You know, he met his future wife, Sylvia Jean Basney, when he was picking up her brothers from strawberry picking at the Gnos farm. After a year-long courtship, they were married on June 14th, 1963, and they made their home in Corvallis while Bob was finishing his schooling. Well, after college, he attended USA INF School and was drafted into the Army as a second lieutenant. He moved his family to Germany while he was serving, and he left the service as a first lieutenant just 3 days away from becoming a captain. In 1965, though, Bob and Sylvia moved to Hillsboro, and in 1969, they bought a farm and made their home in North Plains on Pumpkin Ridge Road. And Bob worked at Irvington-Moore Log Boss Systems until retiring. You know, Bob always had several projects in process on the farm, and he was truly a jack of all trades. He enjoyed working on and restoring old planes at Hillsboro Airport, and he loved teaching his grandson Tyler all sorts of useful skills like building birdhouses, riding a quad, running a chainsaw. That's right, a chainsaw. All skills he felt were necessary for a young boy to learn. But you know, actually, Bob taught at a lot of schools. He taught the School of Nail Recycling. Dana's going to tell you more about that. Bob's School of Science, where he taught his kids all the chemical reactions that occur in the baking of cookies, and then enjoyed the cookies that resulted. And then there was Bob's School of Mechanics or Engineering, which included building and rebuilding all sorts of things. And his daughter Dana, when she was sharing with us, recalled a fun story sitting at the kitchen table with her dad with the carburetor out of her car, sitting on the kitchen table in pieces, of course. And Dad informed her that he was not going to fix the carburetor. She was going to fix it. And that is what they did with his instruction. And you know, Bob took all the generations of his family, starting with his own kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, to Bob's schools. But you know, he also had a sense of humor about going through hard things. He was being treated for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with chemotherapy when he told Dana, I can't go into Whole Foods anymore because no GMOs are allowed there. That's right. There were 4 things that were non-negotiables for Bob, and you're going to see those out in the lobby, and that's Coca-Cola, rolled gold pretzel sticks, red licorice, and Del Monte ketchup. Now, we're not going to give you any bottles of ketchup today, but the reception that we're going to have afterwards is in honor of Bob and those non-negotiables. The ketchup, though, we'll leave that on display and let the family take it home for some sort of good use over a meal to remember Bob with. But Bob was very active in the Post-6 American Legion and served as post commander. He was also an integral part of the North Plains Garlic Festival as a way of marketing local goods and bringing notice and attention to the businesses in the small community of North Plains. Here's the deal. That included his own elephant garlic crop. But Bob loved to find ways to help others benefit from the ideas that he was pursuing. Bob was also part of this faith community, as I mentioned. You know, he had a squad. That's what we call it now. Maybe a crew, maybe a small group. But it was a group of friends, and they had breakfast with each other each Sunday after the 8 a.m. classic service. He also liked to play pinochle with some of them. Each year at the start of December, though, he would ask me if Evergreen would like some holly from his farm. You notice the beautiful holly wreath, which anybody who knew Bob knew that holly was near and dear to his heart. And he had a lot of it. But what I love is he never assumed. He always offered. And the thing is, he would deliver several large bags of holly to us. We could have filled the church with the holly he gave us. But Bob was a generous and diligent man. That was our experience of him here in the Evergreen community. And he was preceded in death by his wife, Sylvia, his parents and 2 siblings, Arnold Vernon and Eileen Elizabeth. Bob is survived by his children, Dana Radford of North Plains, who you'll hear from in just a minute, Rex Gnos of Hillsboro, 3 grandchildren, Stephen, Jonathan, Gregory, and 11 great-grandchildren, Alicia, Tristan, Addison, Tyler, Julian, Skylar, Ariana, Colton, Kane, Liberty, Rory, and 2 siblings, Joyce Francis and Janet Mary. Now, some of you know that Dana is an artist and loves to also write, and she has written a poem called The Peaceful Journey, and she's going to come up now and read that for you as a tribute to her dad.
I wrote this quite a while ago for a friend of mine that was passing away, and I felt that it was appropriate for my dad as well. And it's entitled Peaceful Journey. Come, dry your rolling tears, rest your weary heart, sit your soft body beside me as my soul will soon depart. Don't cry for me, my love, for I am just at the beginning. When I leave this painful place, it is a new life I am winning. When death takes my weary body, the pain and suffering put to an end. My soul will finally be freed, a new life I will begin. I dream of this beautiful place when I close my tired eyes, when the mountains kiss the heavens under a blue and sunny sky. The wind blows softly here where the wildflowers grow, in this place of awesome beauty, deep in my dreams where I often go. It is here upon the mountain, in the sun's slowly fading light, I will say my final farewells. I will kiss you all goodbye. Close your eyes in the breeze softly blowing. See the beauty and the peace of this place, for it is here among the wildflowers I will live beyond in God's grace.
And now you're invited to have a viewing of Bob's life and pictures, and we invite you to enjoy this. And in just a little bit, we're going to invite you to share memories. Sometimes those come to mind when you're watching the slideshow and you're seeing those pictures. And if there's a story that you'd like to share, we'll have a roving mic in just a little bit for you to do that. So just wanted to give you a heads up as we take a look at the life of Bob Gnos in pictures.
Well, I hope that there were some smiles along with probably a few little tears as we took a look at that. This is an opportunity for many of you, if you would like, for the next few minutes to share some stories and some memories. I just want to start as you're kind of collecting yourselves, and then we're going to end this time with a couple sharing a little bit and sharing a gift of a song as well. But I'll tell you in a moment about meeting Bob. But part of our routine at 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings was to talk about the beavers and the ducks. And I want you to know that I'm under strict orders from Dana today to wear this duck hat. Strict orders. This is Bob's last gloat. So when the beavers beat the ducks last year in football, I had my humble pie, and you know Bob's a very gracious and generous man most of the time, other than when he was gloating. And so for the last year, we've had the gloat. So this is my cap of shame today, and I want you to know, Dana, that I want to feel better here at Bob's service, and so. It only took me 66 years to buy a beaver hat, but it feels better than I thought it might have. I want you to know, better than I thought it might have. Well, please, Carlos has a microphone. He's going to come your way. If you just raise your hand, he'll come to where you are. Feel free to stand if you're willing to do that as you speak, and let's hear some fun Bob stories and memories.
I'll start.
Please.
I will so start. So last night I sat down. Well, actually I've tried to sit down all week and write, and I just couldn't do it. And so when I was trying to sit down and write, I kept flashing back as we were cleaning my dad's house all week to this yellow legal pad. And my dad lives by these stupid things. There's probably 20, 30 of them floating around the house with notes organizing his month. And on this one, on the front of it, it says, knowing you have consequences, engage in life with a purpose. And when I read that, it brought tears to my heart. I thought, that sums my dad up more than anything. And that gave me the inspiration to write last night. So knowing that life has consequences, engage in life with a purpose. So I look back at my dad's life, and you know, he did engage life with a purpose. He, you know, gosh, I don't even know that I can read this. I had so many laughs with my dad. My friends had laughs with my dad. We reminisce about old times and we laugh. When I was growing up, I learned to drive a tractor when I was 6 years old. How many 6-year-olds do you know learn to drive? You know? I don't know. I did.
Was it that old Ford?
It was an old Ford 9N tractor, and I don't know how many of his precious holly trees I ran into. I bounced that tractor off of so many trees, I lost count. And a few months ago, him and I had a few good laughs about that. And I said, you know, I bet you can't find any scars out there on those trees. And we were laughing about how hard it would be to change crops because you can't get rid of those darn things. You can't even burn them out of the ground. And anyway, we had a few good laughs over that. I don't know that it would have went over so well when I was a kid, but we laughed about it not that long ago. And like what was talked about earlier, Bob's school. Bob's schools. I went to many of Bob's schools, as did my kids, and as did my grandkids. And my friends, yes, my friends went to Bob's schools too. I went to Bob's School of Nail Recycling, and I bet you nobody else has been to a school like this. My dad used to tear down old buildings, and my brother and I, our job was to pull nails out of the boards, straighten them up, and sort them by size into 5-gallon buckets. I think we ran out of nails in the early to mid-90s. We finally ran out of nails, and about then, steel was getting expensive, and we wished we would have had those nails. I went to Bob's School of Kitchen Table Mechanics. I rebuilt the carburetor of my 1976 Pinto Runabout, much to my mother's dismay at the kitchen table. Dad put down newspaper and flipped over a cardboard box lid and proceeded to have me tear it apart. And I managed to put it back together under his guidance. Decided that I did not want to be a mechanic. Hence, I am not a mechanic. I passed the class. I know way too much about mechanics because I grew up on a farm and I had Bob for a dad. And I've worked on way too many things. I went to Bob's School of Potato Cannons. Bob's School of Potato Cannons. Let me tell you a little bit about Bob's School of Potato Cannons. Did you know that a potato cannon is deadly to gophers? Yeah, I didn't either. I was standing at the barn one day and kept hearing explosions. I asked my dad later that day what the explosions were, and he proceeded to tell me that he was blowing up gopher trail with acetylene and oxygen and lighting it off with a battery and a spark plug. Yeah. Try explaining those explosions to your horseshoer when he's there to trim your horses, and your horse isn't moving because they're used to the explosions. Horse is just standing there like it's a normal occurrence, which at our place, it pretty much was a normal occurrence. When things don't go boom, then you get worried. That's when you run. I went to Bob's School of Life Skills, lots of life skills throughout my years. And I look back and I cherish all those moments. My son John and my nephew Greg went to Bob's School of Catapult Building. And I found the proof the other day in pictures when I was going through pictures. My dad was helping my nephew build a catapult for a school project. And then I happened to see other pictures where the boys happened to be one holding on to the other and pulling this giant rubber band back on the back of the tractor sprayer arms, and I kept thinking to myself, there's no way they came up with this crazy idea by themselves. I know my dad had a hand in this. Thank you, Dad. My dad always had a positive outlook on life, and it was never more evident than these last few years when he was sick. And I'm sure that a lot of people really didn't even realize how sick he was. And it wasn't just the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He had lots of other things going on. And he never really ever complained. And you never got a straight answer out of him either about his health, unless you knew exactly what to ask and how to ask it, because he wouldn't lie to you. He just would skirt around it unless you were extremely direct. And I learned that one real quick. Even during the rough times, he was always one to crack a joke. You know, the GMO, the Whole Foods thing. Yeah, he came home after an all-day infusion at the hospital and came down to bring mail to my daughter and I. And he's got a smile on his face, and he says to us with a smile and they won't let me into Whole Foods anymore. And we're looking at him and we're like, Grandpa, what are you talking about? Well, they don't allow GMOs. And I just rolled my eyes and I'm thinking, oh, Dad, you and your dumb jokes. And my daughter's laughing. And that was just him. You know, he always was laughing and always cracking jokes. And my dad and the Beavers. He's been a Beavers fan his whole life. So, hence, I had everybody dress in the Beavers garb today because, he had this great idea. He was going to have a t-shirt made, and maybe one of these days my son-in-law will get around to making it. His idea was he wanted a beaver in a boat dressed in beaver's garb, duck hunting, a duck dressed in duck's garb overhead. That's what he wanted. And I could just see him sporting that t-shirt to a football game. Go Dad. So this is a celebration of my dad's life. And he always had to have the last laugh. But I think my daughter and I got the last laugh on him. Dad, we love you. And this is for you. When Steph and I were deciding on what to bury him in, we decided that we need to bury him in the way we remembered him. So I hope he's laughing, because we sure had a good laugh picking out his wardrobe, and we have pictures to prove it. Dad, I don't know where your other beaver sock is, because we only found one, but we did find a bright orange Nike sock to match, and it was a lonely one too. So you have one bright orange Nike sock and one beaver sock. So if we find the other two, we'll donate them. The suit we found just didn't seem appropriate to bury you in. It still had the tags on it, and I just don't remember you that way. We dug through your closet, and we found the beaver shirt that Alberto airbrushed for you, and decided that you needed to wear that under your favorite brown Dickie shirt, you know, the one that's missing half of the right sleeve, and you should have been tossed when you bought the new ones, but the new ones still hung in the closet, and they still have the tags on them. And you just wouldn't give up the holy one, so you got buried with it. We did give you a new pair of Dickies pants, and Steph did pull the tags off. They were hanging in the closet, and I pulled the new belt down, and I don't think I pulled the tag off of that one. We did give you the bright orange beaver's jacket. I felt that was appropriate. And I did bury you with the Gnos Holly Farm hat, because you never went anywhere without that. And I tossed in some of your favorites, the Red Vines licorice, a bottle of Coke, and a bottle of Del Monte ketchup. Oh, and I found a little stuffed beaver, and he's sitting on your left shoulder, watching out for you. And he's going to keep you company. And Alberto, bless his heart, he told me about your shoes. He told me that you had to be buried in your tennis shoes. You know, the ones, the old white ones, the ones that your toes stuck out of. The ones where the laces were half rotted off, where the soles were worn out, and you had matching holes in both heels. The ones the kids tried to throw away, and you complained to Alberto that those shoes were just broke in, and you would not throw them away, and you swore you'd wear them to your grave. Well, you can't complain. The kids didn't throw them away, and you got your wish. You're wearing them to your grave. So now, I hope you're smiling when you look down at us. And I hope that every time you look down, you're smiling. And I know that every time I look back at my life, I'm thankful for all the wonderful memories you gave me and you gave my family. And I love you.
Thank you, Dana. Wow. You were inspired last night. And I almost interrupted you to borrow that notebook of Bob's so I could take some notes. That was amazing. Thank you. Others, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Ron Schoenheit. I've been Bob's friend for 61 years. We were roommates freshman year at Oregon State, and and became good friends and done all kinds of things throughout the years. One thing that was really sad for me is I had a knee surgery about 8 weeks ago or so. And Bob was we're going to go to the second Oregon State game together. He was going to drive. And he called me and said, Ron, I just don't feel good. I don't think, we can go to the game together. And it was, and that's the last thing I heard Bob say. And it was so sad because I couldn't figure out, why he didn't call me back for a week or two later until finally I made contact with Dana and, got the bad news. Bob, I'm noticing, and I've talked to other friends too, we all noticed that Bob didn't have extreme ups and downs. A lot of people do. He was very even person. He was always kind and friendly to people, no matter the circumstances. He went out of his way for others. I know my last year and a half at college, he invited me to live at his house. They had an extra bedroom in Corvallis. And so I lived with them during the week, and then I would drive to Portland and work at a family company in Portland. Some of the humorous things that we did together, Bob and I, when we went to school, we were not drinkers. And we lived in a non-drinking fraternity. And there was no drinking in the house. And one day we got this idea of getting grain alcohol from Oregon State Chem Lab. And I got some green Kool-Aid. And we made the drinks. And then we went out to the fire escape was off our room. So we walked out in the fire escape and we said, well, we can drink here, we're not in the house. And it was hilarious. Another thing that was the year 1960, the movie Psycho had just come out right at the start of the school year. And 3 or 4 of us went to see Psycho downtown. We walked downtown, which was 20 or 25 blocks. And on the way back, we got spooked. We started running like crazy. And there was a fellow that was with us who started hopping over parking meters. And I thought, that's kind of dangerous as they're running. And all of a sudden, he fouled up, and that was the end of that. But I know, and we enjoyed baseball together and football games and so on, especially in the last few years. Bob and I did a lot of things together. There's a lot of interesting parties that we had with the fraternity brothers and so on at Bob and Jane's house and so on. And I just never forget, I had another good friend who fell against a bush, and we were all laughing about it. And then for the next 2 years, this bush died, and we kept on referring it to the fellow. We started calling it that fellow's name. But anyway, it's, Bob was just a great person, and I've talked to several people, and, that were fraternity brothers and others and so on. And he was a great part of our lives, and I hope he's very happy now. Thank you.
Some stories from back in the day, and it's just really amazing that OSU survived both of you. Yeah.
Just have to hold it. Yeah, my name is Ann Kennedy. I met Bob about 35 years ago, and I said, I know a Gnos. And he says, really? I said, yeah, Frank. He says, that's my uncle. And I said, well, I'll be darned, small world in that. And he and Walt would work on different projects together, right? So one day, I'm not used to living on a farm, and I said, you got a pile here, you got a pile there, all this stuff is scattered all over. So I asked Bob, I said, can we bring that all up and add it to your pile? Sure, whatever. So about a month later, here he backs up his truck to the shed, and I go out and I says, what in the world is going on? We just hauled all that up there. Now you're bringing it back down? Well, they built a train that it's the cooker for out at North Plains garlic thing and that. So they're in the shop and they're working away, and this goes here and that goes there. And I says, and all this other goes back up. So for many, many years, they used that cooker. They're still using the cooker for the garlic festival out there. But they built a prune harvester, and I guess that was great fun. Expect when they were on the seats and they didn't counterbalance it and then shook each other off. Of course, prunes went bad the next year, and I think that's still stored up there in one of the sheds. But many, many trips together with Bob and Jean and back and forth. And then they got this one project, they were building these tables for a company. And they used this glue to put the two boards together. Now, well, they didn't have fans going in the shop. And you're messing with that glue and whoo, And that was when Bob decided he was going to get in the garlic too. So Jean and I are sitting out in the shed, and we're peeling the garlic and that, and them two in there just laughing and having a gay old time. And I says, I think you guys need some fresh air. But they had many, many good times together. And Bob went to the same doctor, Dr. Gibbs, that I did, or do, and he called me, and he says, can you call and cancel my appointment? So I did do that, and then he was gone. Lots of good memories.
I'm going to invite one more, and then we have our final treat at the end here, right over here. Was there one here? Good. And then we'll come over to you. Did I see a hand here? Yeah, good. Yeah. Can I just mention before you speak, just for a moment? Oh, there we go. Two and then one. Just mention, I'm not sure that it's wise, even for a science major, to make a home-built prune picker. That just sounds wrong. When you get that imbalanced and don't have the right person on the other side or the wrong size person. I had a whole lot of images that came to mind when you just mentioned that one line right there, and we should talk later. I need to hear more about that. Yeah, right over here, I think, yeah. Thank you.
It's Rob Libano, and I met Bob, I thought, through Walt Kennedy. But when I was talking to Jean, and I said, you're any relation to the Gnosis that had strawberries south of Cornelius? She says, you know how many times I've heard that? She says, yes, that was Bob's dad. Well, I picked berries for Bob's dad back in the mid-'60s. And I know his dad, his Uncle Frank, and his nephew Robin. But I don't remember Bob up there because I guess he was just too busy working while the rest of us were having fun. But I tell you, it took Walt quite a while to talk Bob into joining the American Legion. And when Bob joined, he jumped in with both feet. He was really an asset, and he loved, looking after our veterans, doing what he could for our veterans and our post. Like Dana said, he kept things bottled up, so you really didn't know if there was any turmoil inside because it wasn't on the outside. I once told him, Bob, if I was half at peace as you are, I would be happy. Because he let nothing get to him anyway on the outside when he was around us. We'd get upset with him, Bob, we got to get this done, we got to get that done, we got a time frame. And, it'll take care of itself. Don't worry about it. And it took care of itself. So he will He will be missed. We all know that.
I'm Rex. You know, I wrote my dad a letter last night. I didn't bring it because it's pretty personal. Went up to his house last Thursday, after the funeral, and I got in the driveway and I almost had to stop because I knew he wouldn't be there. My dad was my superhero. I remember a time when I must have been about 5 years old, and our old Ford tractor, you park it on a hill in first gear and it tended to pop out. Well, we were down in the holly orchard and it popped out, and I thought I could stop it. I ran in front of it. I was going to stop it as just a little kid, and it scared him. He came flying up over the back, and I think that's the scariest I've ever seen him get. My dad never raised a hand against his kids. He's always been a pillar in the community and a motivated individual when it comes to taking care of other people. And I love him and respect him for that. Man, I'm going to miss him. I wish I could have spent more time with him the last 10 years. The Lord gave me the last year and a half to spend with him. I know it's good times. A lot of fond memories growing up. I inherited his remote control airplane collection as a teenager, and he had rockets. And I mean, as a kid growing up, I don't think anybody today could experience what we experienced in the 70s, We wanted to go shoot something or whatever, we asked Dad for some bullets. We wanted to go blow something up, we asked Dad to help us or whatever. And this cannon, it wasn't a potato cannon, it was just a cannon. It was pretty cool. My dad was pretty cool, He took good care of his wife, gave her what she wanted. And they'll both be missed, him especially.
Thank you for sharing. And your dad was loved by so many people. Each one of us here today represents scores, if not hundreds of people that loved your dad so much. Thank you. I am going to honor this right over here, and then it's just so unfortunate. I'm going to cut off there. We're going to have the last gift that I mentioned, but we are going to be in the lobby in just a few minutes, and that'll be a time for us to be able to share our stories as well.
Hi, my name is Joyce Meek Reynolds, and I've been a neighbor of Bob and Jean's, and kids grew up together since the day they moved in. I also, and my husband Pete, kind of went along with everything that Bob and Walt went along with. I mean, we raised garlic, we went into American Legions, we watched the creation of the prune picker, which really works, and my son Adam, who is 50, saw it on one of Bob's cousin's place not too long ago. It still works, a replica or one of them. But one of the most memorable things that happened is that I know the Ford end tractor very well because Bob taught me how to cut holly for Isakis in the snow and the hills, and we did all that together. But they got that truck, you saw it on the video, the 4-door truck. Well, we also had an elderly man named Russell Loftus living with us, and he'd never been to Eastern Oregon, and we were going to go hunting. And Bob offered their new truck to us for 10 days. And first Pete refused it, and he said, oh no, if you're taking Russell, you got to take this truck. And I just always was so impressed with this man who just, the generosity of his heart was just unreal. And nobody's mentioned the cow. He had a cow who thought it was a horse. For I don't know how many years that cow lived, but he never butchered it. I mean, he was, am I right? But that was Bob's pet, along with 14,000 dogs and cats and whatever. Here you go.
Thanks each of you for sharing, and those of you that had things that you wish you could have, my apology for you. Let's enjoy some time in a moment in the lobby. I'm going to invite Jim and Shelley Sarayakoff to come, and we have a microphone right here, and it's all ready for you. You can both just stand here, and it'll pick you up just fine.
Where it was not canned, what do you call it? You know, bottled, yeah. The taste of Coca-Cola apparently changes wherever it was bottled, but Bob knew all this stuff. But somebody mentioned how Bob was such a caring man. He would, the time that we knew Bob, he'd give his shirt off to anybody. And there's a bunch of guys in the church that Bob coined this name for our group. He called the Evergreen Chainsaw Gang. And Bob had a bunch of wood, more timber and logs, and that he wanted to give away to others. And so we got a bunch of men together, and we sawed wood on Saturdays and sold it to people, gave it to needy people. The proceeds always went to missions, and we did that for 4 or 5 years probably until we ran out of wood. But yeah, we'll always remember Bob. Just recently, Bob took us on a little tour of south of Cornelius, where he grew up and his family. And we spent a whole Sunday afternoon back in July, I think it was, and giving us the tour, showing his neighbors' houses and friends and family where he used to live. We had such a fun time. So we'll miss Bob. Bob was never a guy that gave a whole lot of advice. I'm a guy that has a lot of questions, and I'm a guy that tends to complain. My wife would probably agree to that. But Bob, as has been mentioned, Bob never complained, and I would ask Bob for advice, or what do you think about this, Bob? Or I'd complain about this, and you know, he'd always have a bigger picture. In fact, he'd always have a bigger picture of God than I had. He had the ability to trust God in a way that, and I wanted to be more like Bob. It just always came out of him. So anyway, we wanted to sing this song, and it talks about the promised land, and it talks about trusting in God, and I want to be more like Bob in terms of have a natural inclination to trust the Lord first before I trust myself. The title of the song is Day by Day, and it was a poem written in the 1800s, and we're just going to sing it a cappella for you. Day by day, and with each passing moment, strength I find to meet my trials here, trusting in my Father's wise bestowment. I've no cause for worry or for fear. He whose heart is kind beyond all measure is a charge that on himself he laid. Lovingly, its part in pain and pleasure, mingling toil with peace and rest. Every day the Lord himself is near me, with a special mercy for each hour. All my cares he fain would bear and cheer me, he whose name is Counselor and Power. The protection of his child and treasure is a charge that on himself he laid. As thy days, thy strength shall be in measure. This to me he did make plain. Help me then in every tribulation, so to trust thy
Thank you, Jim and Shelley. And I first heard about Bob from Dr. Jim. And he was telling me about this collection of guys that went to a holly farm and cut wood. And I thought I had misunderstood that. And so to clarify, I said, do you go cut holly at a wood farm? And he said, no, we go to the holly farm and cut wood. And I discovered that there's this amazing collection of guys that enjoyed getting together regularly to get muddy and wet and cut wood with others. And I couldn't wait to meet Bob. I remember the day that we met. It was right here in this room, and it was right about back here, right about where the freshman college roommate is sitting. I think that Bob was sitting back there to get away from the loud volume of the music. That was before we had the 8 o'clock classic service, which is gentler and quieter. What Bob did not know, scientist that he was, what Bob did not know is that this shell acts as actually kind of a choir shell, and actually the sound goes up and comes down, and the very noisiest seat in the entire room was right where he was sitting. So I think I went back to apologize to this person, and I met Bob. I got more than I expected. You would expect that there would be the big smile and the extended hand and the firm handshake, but I did not expect the blaze of orange that I saw. And there was the hat, and there was the coat, and I got to meet this real life holly farmer for the first time. You know, my experience with Bob, especially the last few years, has been reflected in so many of your comments. This man of apparent peace. He actually convinced me that he really was a man of peace. I think Bob figured out what not to worry about and what not to fret about, and how to get the big things right, and how to let the water roll off like a duck's back, but that would not be fair at all. To handle the waters of life like a beaver. He learned to navigate with an amazing sense of peace, didn't he? I think I know where he ultimately found that. Bob, as a follower of Jesus, was very familiar with the words of Jesus. At his last night, most of you know the story, he was about to be arrested, and hours later he was going to be crucified. He had some information that his followers at the room did not have. Jesus knew he was about to die. They did not know that. And so he was giving them some words of comfort in advance, some perspective that they could reflect back on and gain comfort from in his absence. And some of you know what those hope-filled words include. Just briefly from John 14, it says, "Don't let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms, and if that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me. Also, you also may be where I am. Now, you know the place where I'm going." And Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you're going. How could we know the way?" And Jesus responds with these famous words, "I am the way and the truth and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." Bob lived in that hope. He decided to follow Jesus, and in doing that, we know this man who did good. He loved well. He faithfully served. He was kind. But ultimately, beyond that, he had a hope about what life would be beyond life as we know it. Now, in this story, Jesus does not give us a vivid description of what that looks like. In fact, it raises 1,000 questions for me. I want more detail about that. But you know, my need for detail kind of begins to wane in the powerful impact of Jesus' message, which was one of vivid hope about the future. He said, "My Father's house is expansive and it has room for you." He said, "I am particularly preparing a place for you." He said, "I'm coming back for you." And then he promised the ultimate peace, his presence and his peace. That's what Bob staked his future life on. And I love Dana. I love the poem that you wrote. Can I just read the last 4 lines? Close your eyes in the breeze softly blowing. See the beauty in the peace of this place. For it is here among the wildflowers I will live beyond in God's grace. Bob was a man of peace because I believe that he carried that hope. May we find comfort in that same hope. May we find comfort in that promise of God's presence and peace. Bob, thank you for following Jesus and for living a life of peace that points us toward the person of peace, Jesus. Would you pray with me? Father, thank you that you sent Jesus to come for us, that you have prepared a place for us of joy without suffering, in fullness of life, in vibrancy, in the reconnection with loved ones gone before, a place of purpose. And Lord, to the degree of peace that Bob enjoyed here, that we so saw in his life and were encouraged by, we believe that he's experiencing that squared and quadrupled in your presence. May we, Lord, follow his example in taking steps toward you, in finding your peace, and in sharing the hope that he had in your eternal life. We're grateful for this man, this friend, this dad, this grandpa, this colleague, this neighbor. We thank you for Bob. He is a gift to us for which we are so grateful, and we thank you that he is in your presence as we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Well, thank you for participating today on behalf of the family. It was really a treat for you to come. Those of you that wore beaver colors especially warmed Dana's heart. Good for you. I may even get my hat back on for the lobby. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. In just a moment, I'm going to invite the family to stand, and you'll get to step out first to the lobby. The rest of us then I'll invite to stand, and we'll follow out. Some of Bob's favorite treats out there, but the real treat is that we get to be there. Enjoy one another. Linger as long as you'd like. There's some things to drink. There's some munchies to chew on. Most importantly, there's some good folks to talk to. Family, would you stand? And feel free to step on out and excuse yourselves. Thank you. And now I invite you to stand.